as coaches, as parents, let's be intentional about, not putting additional pressure on people. Let's try to keep them focused on what they're doing as opposed to making it more difficult.
It's time again for the Coaching Life podcast to put out, I'm trying to think of something really cool to say, like put out a world-renowned podcast episode that's going to just completely inspire minds, destroy arguments.
You think we might increase our followers by
opening like that?
10% or something? Oh, we're not going to save this.
We have increased followers significantly in the last couple of months. That's great. Yeah.
Good.
Welcome to the Coaching Life. Welcome to this campus of Ohio University, the building of Scripps College of Communication, where outside of this studio, it smells
amazing.
Delicious.
I'm not sure I'm going to be able to focus.
Today is our annual cookout with the dean.
You know what it smells like, Coach? It smells like a Sunday afternoon on the streets of Cleveland. Right before a Browns victory. That's what it smells like. Do you watch any football this weekend, Coach?
I was looking outside to see if there was poop on the sidewalk or...
No, not in smell like that.
Maybe thought you stepped in something when you came in.
No, not this week. It's victory.
You talking about tailgate?
This is Victory Tuesday.
Yeah.
For the Brownies, the best team in the NFL.
And for who else?
I mean, the Bengals. Isn't that your your favorite team?
Them as well.
The Cowboys sneaked by the Chargers. They snuck by. Honestly, they probably didn't deserve it. Is
there any more yin and yang player than Dak Prescott? You take the performance of Dak Prescott 2 weeks ago and you back it up to last night's. He balled out last night. And here's something I noticed. I told my friend Biz this last week, BJ Ganguly. If he listened, give him a shout out today. It's his birthday up in New Jersey. You know Biz? You ever know Biz?
You told me about it.
Awesome dude. Yeah, I'll tell you the story of Biz someday. But I mean, like our relationship with how we came to know each other. But we talked about how Dak seemed like he was afraid to run the football for a couple of games there early. A couple of those games that they lost, he seemed like very reluctant. He ran her. He took off last night. I think that first touchdown they scored, it was a read option. He kept it. He read the outside linebacker, chasing Pollard, and he kept it and ran 18 yards for a touchdown. It seemed like that kind of reminded him, I can do this.
Yeah.
He got on his feet last night.
I feel like Dak is the kind of athlete that when things are going really well, he's really, really good. Mm-hmm. And when there's a little bit of struggle, some challenge, maybe some pressure.
Oh, man, you're good.
He starts to fall apart.
You're good.
You know what I mean? There's the yin and yang.
Yeah.
Just a guy that doesn't seem like he can handle the pressure. I don't know.
He has folded under the pressure. But wait a minute. That's a myth.
Pressure?
Pressure is a myth. So, folks, this is what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about pressure. And I'm going to say something, and then I'm going to just throw it over to Pat, Coach Martin over here, and let him
you can call me
jump
Pat.
on.
Everyone knows that's what you call me. You don't respect me.
So here we go, Coach. Pressure is not real. It is a construct of our imagination. And so it's time, as this article says by Aaron E. Tuff, PhD, it is time to let go of the myth that pressure drives performance. Pressure is nothing but a myth.
Well, so when I was reading that article, it's kind of confusing because I think what his argument is that, well, boy, there's just a lot of ways to go right now.
There is.
My mind's boggling. It's swirling.
Should I read a little bit, or will that help you put some context to it, or do you?
Well, I know somewhere in the article he said he's making the point.
And I think this is a woman, by the way.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
It's not okay.
I think it's a woman, Aaron.
My bad.
I could be wrong too.
We might have just lost all of our female listeners. Sorry about that. I was wrong to say.
Well, here, and the only reason I say that is the way it's spelled. Like, I don't know for sure, but like, isn't typically ERIN a female?
Why do you keep burying me here, Coach? Let's just move on. But I screwed it up.
Well, you didn't look at the author's name. You just heard me say, did you even read the article?
In the article, she makes the point.
She.
Sorry, dang it. That
Use them all.
when people say, I like pressure,
Yeah.
that,
I work better under.
yeah, that's
Pressure.
not a thing. That's not a thing. And I might agree with that. But the argument, I think the statement that pressure is something that we imagine. Yeah. which makes it very, very real in my opinion. Because
Yes.
that's
just because you're imagining it doesn't mean that it's just basically we're saying it's perceived. It's not real. It's
Yeah, well,
perceived.
sure. Yeah.
But is your perception reality? Like, that perception is increasing the heart rate. That perception is creating inflammation in your body, right? That's kind of the point, is that these writers, I think, the people that stand on the side of pressure is not good for us, or it's not something that we should embrace. It's not something that we should look at someone and say, man, they're just good under pressure. But then we see it happen though. Again, like you said, Dak doesn't seem to be good under pressure.
right.
Well, is he creating that for himself, or what is the pressure then?
Yeah, I mean, in Dak, and I think it translates to everybody in their situation. But I think Dak Prescott has, for his career, he came on the scene and he was, this newfound quarterback for the Cowboys, and everyone was excited about him. But he's always been fighting to prove how good he really is.
Yeah.
So I think he has that, maybe a chip on his shoulder, whatever you want to call it. He feels like, he has to prove his value, and that normally happens when it's a close game, when it comes down to the end of the game, when you're playing a really good defense. And those situations that I'm naming there are situations that, as a sports society, we would often correlate or associate with the word pressure.
Yeah. So in essence, pressure then is something that what we can come back to whether or not it's real or not, but it's felt. Pressure is certainly felt, but it's felt because of expectations that other people have put on you, or expectations that you impose upon yourself.
Yeah.
And it's and those expectations that cause the pressure is they're packaged in caring too much about the result.
Yes, very good.
Right? Or
Right.
or not, I shouldn't say too much, just caring about the result. Like being focused on what's going to happen if I don't.
Yeah.
And so then pressure is created.
Right.
As opposed to staying in the moment and just focusing on that moment.
Absolutely.
Progress.
Yeah, good word there.
Process.
And I do think people function better under pressure, but it's kind of a misnomer, because I don't think those people that function better under pressure, they're not feeling the pressure. So there is no pressure for them.
Yeah.
And normally what happens is a lot of people around them are feeling the pressure. So they rise up. We've seen it. They had a I don't know, study, or I don't know what they did or why they did it, but they had the heart rate of Patrick Mahomes during that Chiefs-Bills game. It was either last year or the year before. I think it was the year before, when in like the last 2 minutes, both teams, it was a close game, but both teams scored like 7 touchdowns collectively, just back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And Patrick Mahomes' heart rate on the sideline was sky high.
Oh, really?
Yes, he could. It's like he's nervous. He's watching Josh Allen,
Yeah,
Buffalo
you can
Bills,
imagine
lead his team up the field.
Sounds normal to me.
Sure. When he went to the huddle, so Josh Allen threw a touchdown to put the Bills up. Patrick Mahomes comes to the middle field. He goes to the huddle, and his heart rate drops. It's in the 60s.
He's doing what he knows he's prepared to do.
Yeah, he's in complete control his emotion, of his perception of that pressure. He's ready to go through the process of what he knows he needs to do to be successful.
And you know how that feels as an athlete. As an athlete and as a coach of athletes now, like we feel that there's a different feeling beforehand, like during the day of games, riding the bus to the game. That's where the butterflies start to swarm in the stomach, and you get there and you're warming up, and once you start warming up, it's almost like there's a little bit of relief. But then after the warm up, you're watching the other team take infield, outfield. You go and take it, a little bit of relief, right? And then after that, now you got the meeting at the plate. You got the national anthem. At national anthem, I've got my hand over my heart and I'm feeling it. Wow, my heart's really racing. And it's that anticipation of what's about to happen. But then once it begins, once the game starts and you're doing what you have prepared to do, it's almost like we can relax a little bit now.
Absolutely.
You don't want to, like, relaxing isn't necessarily the best word, but it's the way it feels. Like it's that heart rate thing. And it has to do with, I think, knowing that you're prepared to do what you're there to do.
Sure.
But that there's something about the anticipation that creates the pressure, because that's where your imagination runs wild.
Yeah. So, then you get in a situation where it's difficult to simulate in practice, and you don't feel as prepared, to handle that situation. So, a close game, you're coming to the plate, you're going to the foul line, with just a couple seconds left, whatever it is. It's hard, it's difficult to replicate that scenario in practice. I think there's ways to do it to a certain extent. I think as coaches, we should strive to put our players in those situations during practice.
But think about why it's hard to create that, and why it never will equal the pressure you feel, because that there's no score, like there's no outcome, if I lose in practice at this practice scrimmage or whatever we've created to try to simulate the pressure, that's not going to matter. Like, no one's going to know about that.
Right.
But everyone's going to know if we lose tomorrow in this game, because it shows up on our record, and we're wearing our uniforms that day, and we're doing, or you can wear uniforms in practice. That's not going to matter. But it's this psychological issue of you've created what it should feel like. Well, you've created it, and you've allowed the external, the people that, it's outcome. It's outcome. It's based on outcome, isn't it? Like it's focused on the outcome. Pressure is focused on the outcome.
Yeah, and I would use another example, and I think it's really valid, and it's valid to all students. Is when a lot of students really struggle to take tests. My youngest son Jeremiah, he struggles, has struggled in the past to take tests, and one of the things I noticed was he gets really nervous when he goes in to take that test, and he doesn't feel like, or he hasn't in the past felt like he's going to do well.
It's very relevant.
Yeah. And we've talked to him and, kind of tried to, qualm his concerns about, what he's going to get on the grade, what he's going to get on the test. Just do the best that you can. And what that's turned into is when we know the test is coming, we study multiple times before that test. So he's studying, and he knows when he wakes up in the morning to go take that test, he's done the work that he needs to do to be prepared, to take that test. It takes a lot of the pressure off. But still, that nervousness of knowing that I could do bad on this, I could get a bad grade on this test, impacted him while he was taking the test, the day of and while he was taking the test, distracted him. That's pressure.
And did he cave? So would you say he caved under the pressure?
Is that
the right way to look at it? Or?
He's always, well, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I took a stress management class in college. Boy, I may have forgotten all the key techniques of this, but the primary lesson from that course was everyone has stress, It's the way that you deal with it,
Yeah.
That dictates how that stress impacts you. And I would say that pressure, maybe it's not as true for the pressure. I do think pressure is created by our own perception. We put that pressure on ourselves, even if we have a parent over in the crowd, saying to do a certain thing, or cheering or complaining.
Well, and that's the lesson to be learned there for a parent, is that you're adding to the pressure.
You are only
Absolutely.
You're only giving your kid or your team, if you're rooting against your team, you're only giving them more things that they can be distracted by, more obstacles that they have to climb over. More the challenges. The game's hard enough as it is, let alone when we put all these mental pressures on them. So. Yeah, that's a very good point. That's something as parents we need to be aware of.
Well, I think some of the focus of this particular article that we referenced here was that we need to try to figure out ways to eliminate that feeling, right? And that's where, let me just read a quote from it, and then let's contrast it with something that Tim Grover talks about in his book Relentless, which you and I have talked about many times.
Right.
So this author says this: we have to start challenging the idea that performance is gained by sacrificing our mental fitness and well-being, or that sucking it up and pushing through is some badge of honor and a ticket to the top. Pressure doesn't make people better. In fact, I'm going to question this. The evidence indicates that it makes them worse. And I'm not sure where the author gets the right to say the evidence. Like, there's no link to any evidence.
Yeah.
I mean, earlier in the article, she says something like, there is no evidence, this is a direct quote, there is no evidence that we work better under pressure. And that's a link to another article that a person wrote whose name is not attached to it. Yeah, it is. Dr. Bill Noss. So all these people with PhDs, right? So they must know.
Well,
but that article is called "The Procrastination Fallacy of Working Better Under Pressure." And so what this article focuses on
it's kind of a different context.
People who wait until the last minute to do something, and then they get it done, and they get it, and they do good work. And then their reaction, the response to that is, well, it's just because I work better under pressure. And so they basically they align procrastinating, creating stress for yourself so that you can do better. And and there is no, the only study that I saw being done is, I think this company, this group that sponsored this first article by Aaron Ito, said that in July of 2021, we asked 1,693 nationally representative United States workers, how often does your performance at work suffer due to challenges with anxiety, stress, or other performance-related mental health issues? So they're equating pressure with things like anxiety and stress, which I guess essentially that's what it is.
Sure.
And this is what they said. We found from our study of polling these 1,600 people, performance pressure and stress are widespread. 1 in 4 report struggling with performance weekly due to stress, anxiety, and performance pressure at work. 63% report struggling at least monthly. 5%, that's 1 in 20, described it as a daily struggle. And so they're basically, their conclusion then is performance pressure and poor performance can become a reinforcing downward spiral if we continue to try to push the fact that pressure is good for us.
Yeah, and I would probably agree with that. I don't know why you would seek to put yourself in a situation where you have added pressure to yourself.
Yeah, they seem to be, those two articles seem to be
they're talking more about when
focusing mostly on self-induced.
Right,
pressure.
and procrastination is not it's not a virtue.
No.
So
no.
I don't know that they're going to get too many people to argue that you shouldn't procrastinate. Does it put added pressure on you when you do? Yes. Could you not have done the same work if you would have done it, giving yourself time to do it? I think you probably would. I would say that I probably agree that pressure does not increase performance. I think what we see is that, as fans, as people, and, watching movies, watching sports events, watching any stories that we listen to, it is when the pressure is there. It's when we're in these moments where, the odds are against us, or, we're facing a difficult challenge and we overcome those situations, that we elevate those, and we praise those moments because, oh, look, it's, someone triumphed in a situation that was really difficult. So we put a lot of insight. We shine a light on those moments. But I don't think that when we do that, we're saying pressure is good. We're saying pressure was part of the challenge, and this person overcame it, and it was because of that, it makes the accomplishment greater.
Here's a quote from Tim Grover. The book is called Relentless: From Good to Great to Unstoppable.
Yeah.
I tell my guys, pressure, pressure, pressure. Most people run from stress. I run to it. Stress keeps you sharp. It challenges you in ways you never imagined and forces you to solve issues and manage situations that send weaker people running for cover. You can't succeed without it. Your level of success is defined by how well you embrace it and manage it.
I think, the points are in a completely different discussion.
We're comparing apples to oranges.
What does Tim Grover do as a professional?
He works with some of the highest performing athletes,
and he prepares
physically and mentally.
And he prepares them for what?
For those moments.
For those pressure
every
moments.
day.
And how does he do that? By putting pressure on them.
Putting it on them.
And that's true. In that, that's why the Navy SEALs go through the amount of training that they do, and the crazy training that they do, because they know that if they can put
extreme pressure.
Yeah, you put you under extreme pressure. That you're gonna feel pressure when you're out in the field.
Yeah.
You're going to feel pressure when you go out on the missions. So if you can function here under the pressure that we put you under, you're going to be able to function out there. And their goal is to put them under a lot more in intense pressure. So I think the preparation to meet that pressure, and if you are prepared, then you're not afraid of it.
Yeah.
And in a way, you would seek it because if you're prepared for it and others aren't, that makes you better.
Well, that's where Grover sends his athletes too. I mean,
right.
In fact, he says this later on in the book. He says, I don't want to hear that someone can't handle pressure. Everyone can handle pressure. Most people just choose not to because it's easier to stay safe and in the comfort zone.
Yeah.
He says, but if you want to be successful, to have that place in the sun, then you have to leave you got to leave the shade. He says you can't be relentless if you can't take discomfort, and you can't be unstoppable if you only deal with pressure when you have no choice. So he's talking about allowing yourself to have to function underneath it constantly.
Yeah.
And I love this quote. He says, "Pressure can bust pipes, but it can also make diamonds."
No pressure, no diamonds.
Depends on how you look at it.
You know who said that?
What's that?
You know who said no pressure, no diamonds? Robert Griffin III, before he was the Browns quarterback. You know what his next job was? Not a quarterback.
Working for ESPN. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky conversation.
Yeah, I don't think that it seems disingenuous to me to say that it's something that doesn't exist.
Me too.
Like, I even listened to a podcast to try it, because I looked it up on our podcast search engines and things like that. Pressure, just type in the keyword pressure, and I saw a whole bunch of episodes on it. And there was one in particular, and I can't remember the name of the podcast. It's not that important anyway, but he opened up by saying pressure isn't real. It's a construct of our imagination, sort of like the way I opened up here, kind of facetiously. And then he read a quote from Kobe Bryant, who, interestingly enough, is one of the people that Tim Grover trains.
Yes.
And I wonder if in reading this quote and hearing what Kobe said about this and knowing from the stories that Tim Grover wrote about, many of which are in his book Winning. He talks mostly about Michael Jordan in the book Relentless, but in his book Winning, he has a lot of Kobe Bryant stories. It's sort of a tribute to Kobe because he wrote that book after Kobe's death.
I haven't read Winning yet.
And but I wonder if everyone is. I wonder if it's just like if this conversation about pressure, like how to minimize pressure, don't focus on pressure on one side, and then the other side saying embrace it, create it every day. If it's like two trains passing each other on completely different tracks.
I do.
Like they're not coming head to head on the same track. It's just like two different things. Are we talking about two different things?
Yeah.
Here's what he said, Kobe said, pressure is self-inflicted. It is self-made, and it's the imagination. We have to control our mind and realize that pressure does not exist. We create pressure for ourselves. So why would Kobe say that?
But see, that's like a weird, like that statement in itself is just weird.
It is.
It doesn't exist. We would create it. So it exists. You know what I mean? So it's like back and forth. But I understand what he's saying.
Sure.
Like I agree with what he's saying. There's no, you can't see it. You can't weigh it. Right. But you can feel it.
Yes.
And it's because of the way that you're perceiving something. It's because of, a fear, a nervousness. So it's there.
It's like standing up in the middle of an airplane and looking in the back and saying, you could either choose to believe it or not believe it, but I'm telling you right now, that back there is not real.
Oh, shoot. Oh, man.
What was that lady's name?
I don't know. What in the heck?
You didn't see that?
Oh, I saw it. I just don't know. I don't know where it came from.
It's like, what's not real? Like, what are we talking about?
Did you see the follow-up?
What's that?
Oh, never mind.
What was the follow-up to that?
I don't know. They interviewed her and
she used it as a marketing scheme or something. I don't know.
That'd be smart. That's a good idea.
I mean, she is a marketing strategist. I think that's what she does for a living.
Pretty
wealthy, I think.
Interesting.
She made herself pretty famous.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's weird, but yeah, I mean,
it is real.
It is real because you feel it.
Yeah. And I think Kobe's saying that. He's acknowledging that. The key is being able to recognize it.
Why is it real? Knowing why it's real.
Yeah.
Why it's there. What's causing it, right?
Yeah.
And I think that might be where the conversation can lead to some kind of conclusion, and we might end up on the same page with everybody that's saying it isn't a real thing.
I think that is where the Tim Grover and the Aaron, what was their last name? I didn't read the article. So.
EATOUGH.
Etal
or ETUF.
I feel like that's where they come together because she's saying we need to eliminate pressure. And Tim Grover's saying we need to seek pressure. But they're both saying it because they know that it will help. It will improve in performance.
That if you're not ready for it,
yes,
you're going to cave.
Yes. So the way that we eliminate it is to be prepared for it.
Yeah. And, I think when you recognize what it is and you know where it comes from, because it extends from being outcome oriented rather than process oriented. And so people like Kobe, people like Jordan, people who perform at the highest level, Mahomes, when his heart rate went down, like when he's on the sideline, he's thinking about all the outcomes. Oh, Allen just scored. I got to score. Mm-hmm. Outcome, right? And you're thinking about that. You get on the field, what are you thinking about? Just the next play.
Yeah.
Just this play. And so that's going to lower your heart rate. And so I think the strategy then is to, whenever you're feeling pressure, pause and tell yourself the reason why this is here. is because I'm thinking about the outcomes.
Yep.
And I can't control the outcomes right now. So that outcome is causing my heart rate to increase. That outcome is creating pressure in me. And so I need to focus on what I can control right now.
Yep.
And when I do that, I'm thinking about the process. And that is then going back to the Aaron's article, that's removing pressure. That's eliminating the pressure.
Yeah, and this is Brian Cain is. I mean, this is what he's big on. Nate Trotsky is Nate Trotsky talks about the elite athletes of the world
Yeah.
have this uncanny ability to control their emotions in situations where they shouldn't be able to.
Yeah.
To lower their heart rate, to be, they're ready for the situation. That's what elite players do. How do they do it? Well, there's, that's what these guys get paid big money to teach and to instruct. So, it's a thing, and it's been a thing. And I don't think I've never that's probably the only context where I've heard that I can think of where someone say I like pressure. Now I've heard athletes say it, I like pressure. Sometimes I feel like they're trying to convince themselves. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's a technique.
It is
to handle the pressure that they're dealing with, right? Maybe to let everyone else around them know, to give them a little bit of confidence in them, right?
Yeah.
So it's a technique, but I mean, I don't know that any human, if they could choose, in a vacuum, do you want pressure or not pressure, that they would choose pressure, discomfort, right? Now, if they're preparing for something, Tim Grover's saying, I seek it. But he's doing it with intention.
But here's what he says at the end of that chapter. He calls them cleaners, people that perform at this highest level, right?
Yeah.
Cleaners. They never feel external pressure. They only believe what is inside of them. I mean, that's it. I mean, you only have the ability to feel the pressure that you're feeling. Like that's like nobody, like it's something that you're creating, right? And so if you're somebody who that you have prepared, that you're ready for the moment, then all you're thinking about is that. All you feel like it's that's your greatest concern.
Or if you understand the overriding value of what you're doing. So in the example of the Alabama softball team, the
Oklahoma softball team.
Oh yeah, the Oklahoma.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. They throughout that season, throughout their chase to be great softball players and to win games and to win championships, they maintained their focus on a greater calling, and knowing that and knowing that their relationship with God and Jesus is more important than anything that they would experience. Yeah. They were prepared for those moments. They felt less pressure.
That's true.
In those moments, right?
Yeah, because their perspective was so much bigger, so much greater,
right,
than that moment or the outcome from that moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, might be a good time to mention this. I'm wondering if our boy Nathan is going to get signed off the practice squad this.
Well, I see. I haven't read any news out of Jacksonville.
Lawrence is
out. Did he get
out.
hurt? So
Berthard is starting.
And see, Brady Yonker told me last night. Brady, one of my players from Eastern, graduated last year. He was in the weight room last night with us, and he said that he asked me, he said he just bought a Nathan Rourke jersey like a couple weeks ago.
That's awesome.
And he said, I told him, well, he asked if next time I got a chance to see or talk to Nathan, if I could have him sign it.
Oh.
And I said, well, coincidentally, I'm doing his brother Curtis's wedding in February, so I'll most likely see him. And so I'll take it. Well, last night he said, would you believe it? He came up to me, he goes, can you believe that after I bought that jersey with whatever number Nathan had, Nathan's changed his number. He's wearing number 12 now, which is what he had in the preseason. And I said, I didn't know he did that, Brady, and I thought that was kind of weird. And then he also said, he posted on his Instagram and stuff that he was in London with the team because I didn't know people on the practice squad traveled. Do you travel if you're just in the practice squad?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's
I
just.
don't think so. You're definitely.
So I don't.
I mean, you're not.
Maybe
active,
they
you're
did for that. I don't know, but
Interesting.
yeah, that is interesting. I mean, it would make, if Lawrence is out, that would make him number 2, right?
I would think.
Right now.
Yeah. So, hey, now, Nathan, and I would encourage everyone to go back and listen to the Nathan Rourke episode. I can't remember which one it was, but should be easily found. He had some really unfortunate things happen to him when he was trying to plan out his next steps after college football. Some really unfortunate things, but he's one of my favorite guests that we had, just because you could tell when just the way that he talked and carried himself, that his faith in God was just so great. And I think if he does get that opportunity, there could be a lot of pressure on him, but I don't think he'll feel that much pressure. I think I think he's going to be very grateful, and he'll be able to handle that. Now, the physicality and the challenge of the game is a completely different story. But that's why pressure is such a big thing, because in your mind, and we talk about it all the time, how much of sports are mental. Yeah, and that's what we're talking about right now. Is how we deal with things, how we handle situations, and it can cripple you. It can not just make you bad. It could render you useless in a sports venue. It really can.
I wonder if fear and pressure are actually linked. Like, I wonder if it's actually, like, if you ask yourself, because I'm sitting over here trying to think as we're talking about this, what actually is pressure, right? What is it? Where is it coming from? Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there is some link to fear causing pressure. So. Like, for example, what is it that you're, like, think about how these things might create pressure in a player. Fear of disappointing your coach. Fear of embarrassment from failure. Yeah. Fear of losing your spot on the team. Right? Fear of just not playing perfect. Fear of making mistakes, right? Making mistakes, not playing perfectly. Like, these are all things that I think go through every athlete's mind. And those are all things that are, as they build up in you, they're creating that pressure.
Yeah, and they're all result based.
They're all results based, and they also are also all out of your control.
True.
Fully, right? Yeah. Not like they're not fully within your control.
Right.
There are some aspects of those things that you can't control, but you can't control if somebody's disappointed in you, right? I mean, you can't control your playing time. You can't control playing perfectly. Things are going to happen.
Sure.
And
Yeah. That's
so
a good point.
You got to focus on this moment, this play, this time,
which is a part of your approach.
Yeah. This breath. Focus on this breath, and then you'll be amazed at how much stress relief goes. There and
that's
is.
Brian Cain, right?
Yeah.
So that's what he does.
Yeah.
One of the big things that Brian Cain does is, you have that focal point. You take a deep breath. You do the movement or the trigger. I guess I think he calls it the trigger that brings you back into focus, and then you're ready to go. He's talking about that moment. What are you focused on right at that moment? That's what's important.
Yeah.
Doing your job, performing an action, not worrying about what's going to happen afterwards, but doing, what you need to do. And that's true. That's, we teach that after errors, after mistakes, right? We want our players to be able to, if they make an error, we don't want them to collapse on the field and be distraught. They have something to do after they make an error, right? And we practice that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we practice those situations where we say, okay, you're going to fail. You're going to be put in this situation where everyone's going to say, oh, and there's pressure on you, because you just failed. What are you going to do now? What's next? There's a process behind that.
Right.
You shouldn't focus on the failure.
Yep.
You focus on what your job is, what you need to do next. I would say people that are procrastinating, waiting until the deadline to get something done, they're really not focusing too much on a process.
Not until the last minute, at least.
Yeah, right. Yeah. I
Well, no, they're not. I may not be at all. I mean, yeah, they're focused on. I just got to get this done.
Yeah.
I just got to get this done.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's a good point.
I mean, I've done that before. I think.
Well, sure.
You know, I know that there's people that, but you know, I think.
I've been living that way this entire semester, and here's the funny thing
You
about
have
it. Like,
not.
No, well, with the class that I'm teaching,
You have not.
Listen,
You're so prepared for that class. It's stupid.
on a weekly basis. My entire weekend is, you ask my family what I'm doing. I'm sitting in the same chair every Sunday night, every weekend, every moment I've got that's free, and I'm working on the next week. I'm week by week on this. And the only reason for that is because I knew I was going to teach it in the spring. So I had September, October, November, December to get ready. And then I get approached, you know, I'm fine. I love it. I'm the one that said yes. Like, I didn't have to say yes, but I get approached by the journalism, director and said, would you teach this semester? Well, that was 2 weeks to prepare for something that I had never done before.
Right.
I've been an instructor of record.
Yeah.
And so, but here's the thing, Pat, I was sitting down with my boss when we were talking, and just check-in meeting, and like, how are you doing? I'm like, this has been one of the most fun semesters for me that I've had since the first couple of years working here. And I think it's because, one, I'm doing some things that are fresh and new, but I also feel like, and I said this, I feel like I'm pressured every week to get this class ready to go. But I feel like I work really well under pressure.
I knew you were going to say that. I was going to do it. I was going to say it before you got it out.
Yeah. So I don't know.
I would say that if you would ask people that know you and know the things that you do, they would agree with that. That you work well under pressure. I think you're a really good organizer, and you're able to plan moments to take care of a bunch of different things. I think that's what.
Well, you have. If you're doing a bunch of things, then you have to be.
What you're doing though is you're alleviating that pressure.
Sure.
Because and you've done it before. It's something that you're used to doing, so you kind of know how to do it. And you just said the key: every weekend, you're sitting down and you're preparing for class that week.
And I don't like it because.
Well, yeah,
it's not something like
takes up time.
Sure, and I wouldn't normally be waiting that long. I wouldn't normally be doing this week's lesson a few days beforehand.
You're never going to do it again after this. This,
I mean, aside from keeping
right.
It's a topic that it's constantly changing. So
sure, but you're going to be able to do that ahead of time.
This is the base, the foundation of everything. The skeleton is always going to be there.
Yeah.
I didn't even have a skeleton.
I felt that way my first year of coaching.
Yeah.
I came in, when was I hired? I'm trying to think. Was I hired in November? At any rate, there was a
after a normal thinking through the off season.
There was a very, limited amount of time to do a lot of things. Mm-hmm. One of those things was learn everything that I had to do.
Yeah, as a first-time head coach,
right?
Varsity head coach,
and I'll be honest with you, Coach. I don't like that. I don't know if you've ever heard of the DISC assessment personality test, but I'm a C personality. I like things. We've talked about my practice plans. My practice plans.
I kind of land there too, actually.
Yeah, but here's where you don't land.
Yeah, I have a mix, but that's the heavy. That's the C is the heavy one on me. But I also have a mix of. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
What S?
Yeah.
Yeah, me too. I have a little bit, but I'm more C. I'm like heavy C, a little bit S. But no, I'm saying that I thought you were saying that's what you do with your practice plans, and I know you do. When we're not following my practice plan, I feel pressure.
You've told me that before.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
Like I want to follow. Like when we're following my player, you can ask him. I'll celebrate it.
He's
We're
energized.
Let's do it. This is a great practice. We might not even be accomplished anything, but we're following the plan. You know what I mean? So
checked off all the boxes.
Yeah, you take steps to make yourself feel better about that preparation, and even in this situation where you've had a limited amount of time to do what you're doing, you're making sure. Okay, I'm setting aside this time every weekend so that when Tuesday afternoon comes around and Pat comes in to do the podcast, I don't need to say, well, we can't do it today. I'm gonna do something else. I mean,
Yeah. We got class.
Honestly, we shouldn't be recording right now. honestly.
Right.
You should be, you know what I mean? But
Right.
you've figured out, you have a way of fitting everything.
Yeah, if it surely were waiting to the last minute, then this would be prep time.
Right.
now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not.
Yeah, gotcha.
It's because you work well under pressure.
Is that what it is? So, it's not a real thing.
I think,
It doesn't exist.
I don't know what everyone will take away from our conversation today, but you said something that was really good earlier in our conversation. That was, for us, and I would say it's true as coaches too. As coaches, as parents, and it's true for as teammates too. Let's be intentional about not putting additional pressure on people. Let's not. Let's try to keep them focused on what they're doing as opposed to making it more difficult. And that probably goes into the conversation we had a couple weeks ago about the parents coaching from the sideline and things like that.
Even the coach then, because I mean, what are some of the little things that we say that probably increase that pressure? To define that, increases the fear in the athlete's mind of not accomplishing the outcome that we're hoping that he's going to accomplish in that moment, right?
Honestly,
here's
what?
one.
It
I'll
could
give you
be
one.
anything, but what?
Hey, come on, man, we need you here.
Oh yeah.
You ever say that?
Need one, kid.
Hey, need you here. And that kid's like, oh, they need me here.
Yeah, but
and some kids all right, that step up to that moment. Some kids,
but you know what we need in those moments?
You're the right man for the spot.
We need them to have their same approach that they always have. We need them to, trust who they are as players. We're not. What we're saying is, if you do that, we like our chances of the outcome. We're not really saying we need you for this certain outcome, although we do.
Yeah, in my mind, if there's a guy on second base and the guy comes up to bat, I'm thinking,
you want to trade?
I really need you.
Double,
Right
yeah,
here.
right. But we know that doesn't happen all the time. So it's like, what do we want them to do? We want them to go up there and we want them to, to go through their steps. We want them to think about, what they're going to see next. We want them to, to use the approach that they know is going to give them the best chance to succeed. Mm-hmm. And even if they do that, they may not succeed.
Yeah.
Does that mean they failed? I don't think so. I think you have a job to do in that situation. Your job is to go up there and, take good cuts. Be focused, swing at good pitches, right? If you do that, you can still fail.
Sure.
But we're talking about the result now. Did you succeed in your approach?
Right.
And if you succeeded in your approach, you're going to be more successful.
Got beat.
Exactly.
And
that's the game.
Yeah.
That's
right.
why we love the game
happens.
so much, because that's part of it.
Yeah.
So, good stuff.
It is. Who you got winning the World Series? Who you got in?
I tell you, the Phillies are looking good.
I know. I kind of feel Bryce Harper's getting to that time in his career where, I didn't really like him when he first came in, but
really?
the older he gets, it was like Brett Favre. I didn't like Brett Favre, but by the time he was retired, I'm like, dude, Brett Favre.
You wouldn't
He's
win.
a man. Yeah. Well, the same thing happened with Tom Brady. The respect.
Yeah.
I couldn't stand Tom Brady, right, for years.
I
But
really-
then at the end of his career, I was like, man, there's just nobody better. Something happens, I think, and I'm feeling that for Bryce Harper right now. I want to see this guy win.
Yeah. I had that for John Elway.
The pressure is on.
Can you believe that? Pressure is on.
You have it for who?
I had it for John Elway. I rooted for John Elway.
Oh yeah,
when I was
yeah.
little.
Wow, I don't believe that.
Yeah, I hated
That's
him.
amazing.
Hated his
But yeah, I
guts.
felt the same thing. Yeah, it
wanted
felt
to
good
win.
for him when he finally won it.
Yeah. I'm a softie. What can I
Yeah.
say? I root for...
That friggin' Ernest Miner.
Jeez. Wasn't his fault. Slaughter missed a block.
Is that what it was?
Yep. Slaughter, Reggie Langhorne, I think, missed a block. Heck, it wasn't just that. Elway went 90.
Oh, I know.
He
was unstoppable.
They hiked the ball off of a guy's hip. A guy in motion ran through. They hiked it off of his hip. Elway caught it and still threw for the first down. That was a third down play. I've got a squirrel outside the window listening to him.
He's asking. He's like, can you guys put some pressure on this acorn? Help me get it out of here. See what I did there.
They're pressuring the diamonds. They're pressuring the
That's right.
acorn.
That's right.
Thanks for listening to us ramble, everyone.